I decided let's do a quick TBR for May since I haven't done any ramblings in a while. And thanks, Ian, for calling me out on that. And anyway, I'm about to start a new job in early July, and things are there's a lot going on at the moment. And I just had a lot of stuff to do. That's the main reason why I haven't done any ramblings lately, even though I had an amazing reading month in May. So since this is going to be a really rambly wrap up for May, I'll just jump right on in because I haven't prepped any notes for the books that I'm going to talk about, and I hope I'm getting things together. It's a bit later in the day. It has been warm all day. It has been a long, long day. So let's just see what we end up with. All right. So in May, I read a total of 7 books with a total of 2,608 pages, which is less than April, but not my worst month yet. Out of those 7 books, 1 was an audiobook, 4 Kindle, and 2 physical book. 3 of those were fantasy, 1 sci-fi, 2 nonfiction, and 1 that I'm categorizing at nonfiction, but is not really nonfiction. You'll see when we get there. And then to the point of really good reading ones, I had 4 5-star reads and 3 4-star reads, and that's it. So this month has been amazing, and I started 4 new series. I didn't continue any, I didn't finish any, but I started 4 new series. So that is amazing. Generally, also in May, we had 2 amazing reading across the shelf session early May about mental health, and I will talk about that a little bit more during the wrap up. And a little bit later in May for Asian authors and books with Asian inspiration. Both live shows were super fun, and I'm linking them, up, down, below, the usual stuff, so you can watch them. Also, if you're interested in joining any of those for June, and I know we are halfway through June already, but still, in June at one point, I wanted to do a reading across the shelf for LGBTQ representation in books and authors. Ursi's already going to join me, but we have space. So if you want to join me, let me know. And then we can figure out when in June this is going to happen. I haven't set a date yet. And Ursi, I need to reach out to you about that. Let's talk about the books that I read in the order that I read them. So it's not in the order of liked most to least or anything. It's literally the order that I read them in. And by the way, I'm looking at usually it's here, but I was lazy today. So there's a pattern in this one. All right. So the first book that I read is Where Shadows Lie by Allegra Pescatore. She corrected me on how to pronounce her name. And I have actually a separate review on that. So I don't even need to ramble too much about this book. I have a separate review for this book. The topic of this book really interested me. You can't see it on this cover, but on the ebook cover, you can see that the main character has a disability, and that kind of was something where I was like, I really want to read about this, and I want to figure out how the author built that into the story, because if I've read about disabilities in the past, it was more like a side character, but never the main character. And she did it so well. I loved this book. This is a serious contender for favorite book of the year or favorite series of the year, or at least somewhere very high up there. I had so much fun reading this. I already have book 2, and I'm planning to read it in the near future. And then book 3 comes out a little bit later this year. So I hope I can then say, hey, I finished a series this year with this one. Highly recommend it. It was so much fun. Next up was Lightblade by Zamil Akhtar. And if you've been around on my channel for just a little bit, you know that I love Zamil Akhtar. He is one of my favorite authors. And after reading Lightblade, which just got launched in June, I have an auto-buy author now, a new auto-buy author. Literally, he can write, and I said that in my review for Lightblade, he can write a dictionary, and I would read it end to end. He has such a great imagination and a phenomenal way of bringing his thoughts onto paper and making or writing them down in a way that you just dive right in, and that your brain is on overdrive and your imagination is on overdrive. And it was, oh my goodness, this book, I've never read something like this before, and I'm still so thrilled about it. So he sent me an e-arc, but the moment I saw the cover, I was like, I don't care if I like the book or if I don't care. I have to buy the paperback for that, which I clearly did. because it has my favorite blue-orange color combo on it. It has a dragon on it, and I just loved it. So Lightblade is about Josh, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right because it's spelled slightly different. But Josh is stuck in a manufacturing type of unit, I'm blanking on the word right now, and is forced to create machine parts over and over and over again. And his only kind of relaxation is the dream world. So in this world, you put a gemstone into your chest, like you have a little thing in your chest where you put them in. And dreamstones in particular help you sleep, and they help you have vivid or lucid dreams. We are basically starting with a book where Josh starts his dream. He got kind of like a on the black market one that helps him learn how to use a light blade because he wants to kill the emperor who is visiting that factory. There's the word that I was missing earlier. who's visiting that factory in 3 days. So the advantage is in the dream world, 1 day in the dream world is an hour in the real world. So he has a couple of days to actually learn how the light blade works. The problem is he is running into an issue pretty early on in the book, which changes his plans completely. And I don't want to tell much more about it because there's so much to discover in this book. And it's just very well done, the way you discover things and the way things are revealed, because there's a lot more to everything there. Anyway, book 1 in a new series, and of course I have to wait for book 2, so thanks Emil for that. So the next one I want to talk about is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, which I listened to as an audiobook. That was a mood pick because at one point I was just like, okay, I kind of feel like I need an audiobook right now and I need to listen to something, and I had a couple of them on my phone. Oh, right. It was on the way to the doctor, and I was really nervous because I got some results and I was really worried about the results being really bad. And I was in the car on the way to the doctor, so I didn't want to, don't text and drive. So I just picked the first audiobook that showed up there while I was standing on the side for a second. And that was Born a Crime. And I didn't think, in my head, I was like, I just need to have something that is talking to me right now so my thoughts don't go all sorts of crazy. And then I realized, hey, this is actually pretty good. And I went through this within a day or two pretty quickly. And I loved the way he is telling his life story. So it's essentially his biography on how he grew up in South Africa and what happened and how life was and whatnot. Definitely read up trigger warnings because there are some things that might be sensitive for some people, but I thought he did it very well in a more neutral tone, talking about like, hey, this is just how life was for me back then. And, without judgment towards anything, which I think is important to do in books like this, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I feel this is a very well-known book, so I don't want to talk too much about it. And I actually love the audiobook in particular because he uses some Afrikaans phrases in the different languages that he speaks, and it sounds really nice because he is narrating it, so you hear how it's actually pronounced and whatnot. All right, the next one was recommended by Stacey, Jake's girlfriend, or the bookish drummer's girlfriend, during our discussion around mental health representation in books. And we were just talking about, general books that help with mental health and that provide recommendations and just include mental health as a topic as part of the story. And Stacey recommended Hyperbole in a Half, saying this is, so it's cartoons essentially. So I don't know, I'm putting up a random page here. I don't even know what page I'm opening, but it's cartoons. I've seen those before on whatever, Instagram or whatnot. So once I saw some of the drawings, I was like, hey, I've seen this before. Now I know where it's coming from. And it's about all sorts of things. It's about life, about dogs, about this person, Ellie Brush, as a child, about her life with depression, and it's just funny, and it's a quick, it's comics, right? So it's a really rather quick read. There's a little bit more text with it between your pictures. But it's really funny, and I really needed that at that point. So I'm excited that Stacey recommended that, and I'm really excited that I picked it up. It's a really heavy book. The pages are really thick, and the book is extremely heavy. Like, you could throw it at someone and poke an eye out or something. Well, you can do that with every book. But, it's heavy. Anyway, fun book. The next one also comes from that conversation that we had about mental health, and Kate was the one talking about this book. That was one of the books that she shared during the live show because she was joining me on the call, and that was The Collected Schizophrenias by Esme Wei-Jun Wong, and it's basically a book of essays. Esme is schizophrenic. Is it schizophrenic or schizophrenic? I'm probably Germanizing this word here right now. And those essays are about her life, like the first time she realized that she's schizophrenic, and just how she has dealt with, how her husband has dealt with it when she was in a phase of schizophrenia. And it was really interesting, and it hit very close to home in certain ways. Schizophrenia is a very specific mental health situation where you're dealing with hallucinations at some times, and you can fall into like a psychosis type of situations where you just believe things that are not real. And I am diagnosed, so for several reasons it hit very close to home. One, I had a situation when I was younger, like teenage time. I had a friend who had a psychotic episode while she was living with me. We were sharing, we were roommates, and I had no idea how to deal with that back then. And then I'm diagnosed as bipolar, so it's a type of depression. And she talks a little bit about that too, because originally they thought she has a bipolar disorder. But even though schizophrenia is, I'm trying to Germanize it all the time, so apologies about that. But even though it is a different type of mental health situation versus depression, like the way you live with it and the things you go through are very different. There are a lot of situations that she talked through when it is just on understanding like what normal means, how other people treat you, how you fit into situations with other people who don't have mental health issues. Anyway, I had situations where I was really sitting there and I was like, okay, this is, yeah, very well written. I like the way she told the story from her perspective, and that how she shared her experience, very relatable in for me, and very insightful too, because she has done a lot of research when it comes to mental health in general, and I thought it was just very well done. And yeah. So Kate, thanks for recommending this. Thanks for talking about it. I'm linking Kate's review to this book. She has done a dedicated review for that book as well. I'm linking that down below so you can take a look at that. And then there are two more ebooks. One is Riebeckite, which is a sci-fi, kind of more on the thriller side. So with sci-fi, I find something very interesting. Sci-fi to me either falls on the fantasy side, like Dune, where you have more fantastical elements, or sci-fi, especially when it's like dystopian, falls more on the thriller side, like Body Scout, for example, that I talked about a while ago. So it's our world, but in the future with not that many changes. Machinehood also falls a little bit into that category for me. And Riebeckite is one more that falls into that thriller category. You know, our world, near future, more dystopian. So we are living in the not too distant future. The moon was hit by an asteroid. And since the moon got hit, you have like Saturn-like rings around it, and you have a dust trail down to the Earth. And that dust trail actually has little alien particles in it. And for years now, the people on Earth know that those alien particles exist. They know that that they just have to live with it. And they built machines that help filtering them out of the air, because they are actually harmful for the body, and they get stuck in the lungs, and then people die from that. But this filtering causes a whole bunch of other issues, and our main character stumbles over those issues by accident, and then a whole bunch of things are happening. I really, really loved this book. It was just entertaining. I had to basically read it from back to back. It was, again, a 2-day read for me, because I just had to know how it continues. I had to know what happens next. I had to know how she is going to resolve that. Also, what I really liked, it's a smart woman as a main character with smart women as side characters. It plays in the Middle East, so you have a really great setting around it as well. Great conspiracy situations, great intrigue situations, great dialogues, great action, amazing conflicts, and it is just a great read. It's super fun, and I love how he approached that alien topic and what he has developed it into. Riebeckite is book 1 in a series. Book 2 is coming out pretty soon, I think, and book 3, if I'm not mistaken, either late this year or very early next year. And the last book that I finished in May, that's called Hands Like Secret, which is a book with an autistic main character. It has a magical school setting, and it has kind of an enemy to lover type of trope in there. That one is one of the more younger books that I read this month. Not saying that it is totally YA, but it falls for me more into that YA category, just because the dialogues are a bit younger, the characters are a bit younger, which is fine. Nothing bad about it, just so you know that it is a bit younger writing. So you're starting with the main female character who's autistic in the magical school, and you basically start in the situation where she is observing her high priestess being attacked by the worst of the worst from the Crimson Cowl, which is their enemies, essentially, on school property, which is unseen because no one can teleport into the school or get into the school, especially not the Crimson Cowl. She somehow manages to save the high priestess and stay alive, and Raphael, who is that Crimson Cowl, lets her live before he disappears. And that causes all sorts of things happen because of that. It's just a really fun, entertaining start of a, is it a duology or a trilogy? I actually don't know. But it's the first book of that series, and I definitely need to know how it continues, because we are kind of left hanging. It's not necessarily a cliffhanger ending, but a lot of stuff has started to happen, and I'm sitting here, it's like, okay, so how are you resolving all of this now? Like, I really want to know. But I have to wait. I don't even know when book 2 will come out. The dynamic between our main character and Raphael is great throughout the book. I really love to learn more about him, and where he's coming from, and why they are seen as the enemy, and all sorts of things. And again, I'm trying not to spoil too much, because that's always the fun of reading those books, right? Discovering all of those things. So I'm not an expert in autism, so I don't know how well the autistic traits are represented. But what I liked reading about is that it's a main character who's in a school where everybody around her and in her age group is further along in the magical studies than she is. She has not yet been recognized as a silver mantle. That's what they are called when they are basically advancing into the next step. And she doesn't know why. She doesn't know why the professors are not giving her that certification, essentially. And it bugs her, and she gets bullied because of that, and she has a really hard time in school. And I love that we have a character like that, and showing how a character like that can change the world still. As I told you, I've read so many good books, I couldn't even pick a favorite. I mean, all of the fantasy and sci-fi ones would be my top ones, essentially, all 4 of them, because I had so much fun reading them, and so much fun with the characters and with the worlds and just exploring all of them, that, yeah, I couldn't pick a favorite. But maybe you can tell me what your favorite was for May. What was your favorite book that you read in May? I'm just curious, Not that I need more books on my TBR, but I would love to hear what you read in May and what your favorite book was. And then I'll hope I see you soon with my next video that I haven't planned at all yet, and we'll just see when this happens. All right. Bye, everyone.